Greetings everyone, it's me again. Some of you know me as T2Derlanton. Some of you probably just know me as Hypocritical Mass. That's my new YouTube channel. And making this video as an introduction to a series of videos about the history of T2 and how I came to be. What am I? How did I come to be what I am? What am I? First of all, I'm a gamer. I like games. My life has been influenced by technology and computers and games mostly. But I'm a guy who knows things. I'm a guy who knows what makes things good. I'm a guy who knows what the adolescent male wants, and early adult males also want, because I am one. But also, some have called me a legend, some have called me many things, but I figured I'd make this series to let people know. Well, basically there's one series I want to talk about. After I joined YouTube, I became T2Derlanton, because the people need to know, if you're going to watch my Twitch stream, if you want to subscribe, if you want to watch the Hypocritical Mass YouTube channel, you need to probably know some backstory. If you're new, all you guys that are currently subscribed are my old fans and they've already heard the stories, but you probably don't know the early history, which is what I'm leading up to right now. I'm going to go through 3 videos: my early life up to middle school, the high school years, and then the 20s, the early 20s. That's like after I left my parents' house and before I got on YouTube. Those may have to be broken up into more videos than 3, but I've got a lot of notes, let's just say. But I guess long videos are fine. But I'm going to go through the events that led up to creating the monstrosity that is the T2. There's a confluence of events that create people sometimes. Usually it's like a serial killer or a school shooter. But sometimes you take a right turn. Now, there's a time in high school I was bullied about the baseball team. In this one biology class where all the hot chicks, the most popular girls in school, were in. And they used me as target practice. And I was the that meme of the guy you throw paper wads at the back of his head and he slowly turns around. And I don't get off on a tangent. That's why I'm making this video for the second time. I started getting into some pretty dark places and I had to stop the video and restart it. But let's just say I could have become a school shooter at one time, and I took that right turn. I allowed this individual, who will remain nameless at this time, I might make a video about him in the future, but I allowed him to live. And that's what happens when you fuck with somebody. They're not being a pussy when they don't do anything. They're thinking about the consequences of, if they decided to take you out, how long would they be in prison, what would actually happen to their life, something like that. But I took the right turn, and I became the T2. I became the alpha nerd, let's say. So, if you guys have been watching Stranger Things, people that are fans of that show, there's a lot of people that like that show. And why do they like that show? Because it coincides with the time, the 80s, when I grew up. I was in the right time in the right place. And it appeals to people that are in that childhood sort of state of mind of the American summertime. You know, the comic books, the baseball cards, the video games, all these things that appeal to young men and some women, but mostly men. And that's why everybody likes it, because that was a time when things were different. You could rent movies. They had Blockbuster back then. People actually went outside. People, I think it was also a lot of sexual tension. People were like hiding Playboys and stuff because you didn't have the internet back then. So your porn was in like, what do you call it? Paper format. So, there's a lot of sexual tension, and like teenagers are having sex, but there are kids outside with the water hose spraying off the car, you know, and the dog's barking. They're running with their sprinklers, and they're shooting each other with squirt guns. That's what I think of when I think of the 80s. I also think of like the suburbs, which I didn't grow up in the suburbs, but I wish I had. Sometimes things will remind me of the suburbs, almost as if I lived another life. Like in Twisted Metal 2, there was a secret level called the suburbs, I think, or suburbia. Yeah, suburbia. And that really made me. And there's a book by Stephen King called The Regulators, which described kind of some suburbs. And that's really, I don't know, it's like nostalgic, but I didn't actually live it. So it makes me wonder, like, did I have a dream that I used to live in some suburbs, and I'm remembering my dreams, or am I remembering an alternate reality where I actually lived? But that's another thing about me. I have weird dreams sometimes, and you'll get to know me through those videos. But, yeah. These three next videos will probably explain to you the perfect storm that created the T2. If you want to call me by Hypocritical Mass now, you can. But everybody calls me T2. So if you see me in a video, like the classic videos, and I'm referring to myself as T2 Darlanton, or people call me T2 in the comments, it's because I've had 3 different YouTube channels, and this is my 3rd attempt. The first one, YouTube banned it over some nudity in a gameplay video of The Godfather 2, which by today's standards wouldn't be anything. I mean, I had some other strikes from where I uploaded the South Park World of Warcraft episode. That's legit. There was 3 parts. That's 3 strikes if you count each one individually, but I think they just counted it as one. And then there were some things like some people claimed some videos that was just me talking about something, which I couldn't dispute the claim without giving them my information. I didn't want to do it at the time. I think I may have given them my information on my new account because I want to monetize it, but I don't know. It would be nice if I could someday get that account back and I wouldn't have to do all this. I could just go back to the old account. But after that, I had a backup account, T2 Darlanton with an I, capital I, which looks like a lowercase L. So it looked exactly the same. I created it about the same time I made the first account. So by all intents and purposes, it was just another T2 Darlanton account. But I didn't have all the subscribers. I had like 20,000 on my old account, and the new one I maybe kept like 2,000 of them. And wasn't nearly as successful. YouTube just cut the legs right out from under me. I was on the rise. I could have been a PewDiePie or a Markiplier or Jacksepticeye, which I don't really want to be one of those. But yeah, let's say I was up and coming. And I probably could have made some serious cash if I kept at it and YouTube hadn't killed the account. But the email expired on that one, on the second one, and I lost that account too because of a glitch with Hotmail. I'm so old school that I had an old Hotmail account that was legacy, and then Microsoft bought out Hotmail, so then I didn't use that email because I used Gmail more, and I just kind of ignored that one. So then it expired, and then I quickly remade it, another T2 Darlanton at hotmail.com account. But that was a Microsoft one now, so it's technically different, even though the email address is the same, and it doesn't connect to my old account, so I can't log in with it. So that's a big old hullabaloo, and that's the story of why I'm on a Hypocritical Mass now. I just came up with a new name. So it's like I'm starting from scratch, and I've got to get all these watch hours to get monetized. I have like 4,000 hours watched, and I'm at like almost 1,000 now, and I got to get 1,000 subscribers, and I'm maybe like 25 short. So we're getting there. But I'm going to make this video as an introduction to these three videos that lead up to the actual history of T2, which is coming. That's the history of me on YouTube. I'm going to go through all my videos, like the order in which I kind of got popular from them, I think. I really don't know how I'm going to do that, but that'll be like an introduction for people that want to watch me on Twitch and YouTube. So, yeah, that should be it. I was born a poor black child. Maybe not poor, but lower middle class. Maybe not black, but pretty pale. Probably about like I look right now. But my earliest memory was when my brother was born. I was 3 years old. And I had some McDonald's that I guess my dad got me. I was sitting in the backseat of our car, and my mom was coming out of the hospital in a wheelchair with my brother, and I dropped my cheeseburger on the floor of the car, and I stepped on it. I was hugely disappointed. This was my first real deal with losing food. Or whatever. My first run-in with cheeseburgers, let's say. So then my first intro into technology was my uncle used to have a camcorder. He'd come over and make little home movies of us and stuff. My dad used to be in a band. My brother later on joined a band. I had a lot of musical influences in my family and stuff, which is kind of like why I got into synthesizers and keyboards probably in like middle school or high school. Ferris Bueller was a big influence on us back then. Everybody wanted to have like a synthesizer that could play fart noises. Keyboards were pretty big back then. I think I would recommend growing up poor rather than having money. It just makes things more interesting. We weren't that poor, but we had like generic stuff a lot. Like we never had G.I. Joes. We would have like some generic version of like the little webbed feet guys. There was this guy that went to church with us. He always had G.I. Joes, and we'd borrow them and we'd look at them and be like, man, look at the detail on these. They actually move. They have articulating arms and legs, and you can put stuff in their hand because they have like a little hole in them. And it was just new to us. And like the Voltron was around, and then we had like a generic one, I think. And Transformers were huge, and we had like the generic GoBots. I actually had some transforming robots. I think it was as part of the GoBots. They transformed into rocks. They didn't transform into cool vehicles or cars. They turned into rocks. And I've talked about this before. But yeah, that makes things kind of interesting. If you just have everything given to you, it's just not as fun. But in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, everything was like a cultural... It was the best time to be alive. I mean, if you had the internet back then, I think it would be even better. But then everybody would be stuck on their phones like they are today. But back then, we were like cultural sponges. We were like living in all of the things. Like Transformers, it was everywhere. It's not just... You probably, younger guys probably only seen the Transformer movies, but you don't know about the cartoons. And things weren't just cartoons. If it was a cartoon, it was also a cereal. It was also on a book bag. It was also on a Trapper Keeper. It was also on, name something. A comic book. There were Transformer comic books. I had those. Lunch boxes. People don't even take lunch boxes anymore, but you had any, like, there was like weird TV show lunch boxes. Like the Fall Guy. I remember a friend of mine was a big Fall Guy fan. I think he had one of those. Man, people don't even remember the Fall Guy. That's like, that's super old school. But you grew up in and around the culture, like Ninja Turtles and Voltron. When I was in kindergarten to first grade, I had this friend Neil. We used to draw robots because Transor Z was out and Voltron. And I would draw like attachments. This was when I was getting into my game creation kind of beginnings. I was putting like, oh, you have a robot with an arm, but it could come off or it could shoot off, and you could replace it with like a flamethrower or an electric whip or a buzzsaw blade or any kind of modular attachment that might be useful. Missile launcher packs, that kind of a thing. And I used to take apart my toys. I had a BB gun I took apart. And I had like a toy gun that made like space sounds or something that looked like futuristic, and I like combined them together in duct tape or something that made like a different kind of gun. That was pretty neat. This were like early inventiveness and things. I got into video games like with the Pong. It's one of the earliest game systems. It's just a plain old ping pong tennis game. What else was there? There was Atari 2600. We had games like Breakout and Adventure and Combat. That was big. My dad got into Pitfall. We used to play Pitfall together. And then, man, I don't even remember. There was a lot of different games. We only had a few. But you'd go to like school and they'd have different games. You'd borrow some off your friends. And like, I grew up in a trailer because I was poor, like I said. But it was alright. We had like a back porch we added onto it. It was kind of... It would get hot out there. I'd put a lot of junk out there. That's where I'd take apart my stuff, my toys, and I would like do experiments and things and create things and take apart a bunch of junk. I had boxes of junk back there. And we had like a bunch of wasps and spiders would get on the back porch, and I would take like a water gun and I would spray them, or I'd take a fly swatter and just swat them, and I would keep track of how many I killed. Like so many flies and so many wasps and so many spiders, and then I would kind of keep score. This was early, before video games. You know, I had to keep score because I'm competitive like that. I was competing with myself, but I was competitive. And my grandpa had a cabinet shop. He used to make cabinets. He always had a bunch of spare wood laying around. And my uncle, that's the same age as me, that later went to prison for meth, so you probably heard that story. He used to make swords and stuff. Like when the Ninja Turtles came out, I think we made like a sword thing and like a ninja staff. What if we ever made we made nunchucks, and he would like core them out. He would make some nunchucks, right? He would core them out with a drill bit, and he'd get some lead car weights like on the side of your wheels to balance your wheels. Then you take the lead and he'd melt it down. He would put it in the nunchucks, so it'd be heavier. He actually would even make like paddles for school and take it to the teachers because the teachers wanted him to. And he would drill holes in the paddle so it was less air resistance for when they beat your ass, because there was capital punishment back then. And they had paddles with holes in them. I didn't even think about that just now. And back then we used to go to the flea market all the time, and we would get like I mean, there's all these boring stalls at flea markets. People sell like yard sale crap and clothes and just boring stuff. Then you'll run across that one stall. It's like, oh, this guy's got baseball cards. And over here, this guy's got ninja weapons. What? He's got ninja weapons? And you go over there, maybe he has like some illegal fireworks too, and he's got like fucking ninja stars. You take those home and you throw them at each other, or you stick them in the wall. We used to have a little basketball goal. We'd do like slam dunk contests. We weren't like, it wasn't a 10-foot tall goal. We were just kids, but we'd use like a milk crate. We'd jump off of that. We'd lower the goal to where we could reach it. And it lived on the side of a hill, so the ball would just keep rolling, and it would be really annoying. We'd have to go chase it down. But I remember, like, at each one of these stages of my life, I don't know if I mentioned this in the intro. I may have the first time, but I got kind of crazy. But each one of these parts of my life, I had like a money-making scheme that went wrong. I had some bad ideas. And maybe Twitch is the current version of that. We'll see. But, like, when I was maybe 5, I got into drawing pictures a lot. And I would sit on the side of the road, a gravel road, in the middle of the boondocks, nowhere. No cars ever went by this road except for my uncle, because he's the only one that lived past us on this road. And I was going to, like, sell pictures on the side of the road that nobody ever came down. So that didn't work out very good. I think my uncle may have bought one for $0.25, and that was about it. And I had to throw it and start all over. But yeah, that was weird. And then we used to ride the bus. We would have sword fights with these weeds when we got off the bus. They were like hard, like sticks, pretty much. And sometimes, like, I'd find like dead trees in the woods, right? I remember one time I always would just like push these dead trees over because it's fun. But, like, I'd get off the bus and everybody was, like, watching, you know, I'd push over a dead tree. Make me look super strong. Like fucking the Hulk or something, you know. I think one time, this was after everybody left, I saw a squirrel on a tree. And I picked up a rock and I threw it at it and it hit it and killed it. But it wasn't a normal squirrel. It was one of those flying squirrels with the webbed wings, you know. You can glide. I never seen one of those before. That was pretty crazy. And then, let's see, later on, my dad got us some bikes. Had a few bike wrecks. Used to do the card trick where you put the card on your spokes, make it sound like a motorcycle. Then we actually got motorcycles. We had like an ATV motorcycle we used to ride around. It was a pretty fun time. But then we kind of got into baseball card collecting back then. My uncle had a bunch of old, like, not Honus Wagner old, but pretty old baseball cards. They're probably worth something. So then we got into, that's kind of like the early introduction to the loot boxes and EA, kind of gambling kind of thing. Surprise mechanics, they call it. Yeah. So, that's pretty interesting, and I had a big collection. Then I started collecting comic books. Remember the book fairs at schools were always good. I'd get into some interesting books. Nancy Drew and Hardy Boys kind of stuff. They'd send you this little piece of paper, and it'll have all these books on it, and you would circle which ones you wanted, and then they'd come in, and you'd pay for them when they came in. I really loved doing all that stuff. I remember, like, the elementary school library, I had this King Arthur book I checked out. And it was like that thick. I read like half of it. I was like, oh man, I read half of this thick-ass book, and I was super proud of it. I was even into some nerdy shit back then. I remember reading a book on spores, molds, and fungus. Or mushrooms, fungus, and moss or something. It was a weird book. Like, I was into some sciencey shit. I remember my parents, they didn't really try to make me smart or anything, but I remember, like, they had this salesman came by who was selling World Book encyclopedias, and they bought a set. And I would sit and read those things forever because there's so much information in them, and, like, there wasn't any internet back then. If you had some encyclopedias, you could look up some shit. You could get the S one, look up sex, and see what that is. But I was more into, like, let's look up some military aircraft and see how to identify planes from the ground. That's the kind of stuff I was into. But, that's pretty much growing up life, I think. If you ever heard of Steve Simone, he's a comedian. He does this, Remember This special. I don't know how you can listen to it playing, but I heard it on Ari Shaffir's Skeptic Tank podcast, number 191. And he talks about, like, Saturday morning cartoons, and how he had these two brothers, and they would wake up and eat cereal and watch cartoons, and wrestling, and going to Chinese restaurants. There's a lot of cool stuff on there about growing up in the same time period. If you guys want to listen to that and try to get an idea of what it was really like, because it was pretty awesome. That influenced me pretty big, I think. Alright, I thought of some more stuff, and I left some stuff out of the first video, so this will bring you up to like middle school, from still some more early life stuff up to middle school. Let's be an extra. So, most interesting characters in fiction all have an origin story that usually starts out with, like Batman's parents were killed, or if it's like a drama story, like the parents will get divorced, but my parents are still alive and they stayed together. So you'd think I'd have a pretty boring story, and I think from my perspective, all these things I do, I tell these stories about, they seem boring to me, but you guys seem to like them. I don't know if it's like I'm making something out of nothing, or it's just learning about somebody you've never experienced. I don't know what the deal is, but I don't know. Like I said, being poor was part of it, and I remember we used to live in that trailer, and I don't know if this was because we were poor or my dad just bought a pig one time. But maybe to save money, we slaughtered it ourselves. And if you never grew up on a farm, you're not used to stuff like that. It almost looked like one of those horror scenes out of a Rob Zombie movie where there was like a pig's head in the kitchen. There were like bins or buckets full of like pork fat and meat. And we had this big cauldron out in the yard, a cast iron cauldron full of oil that we were heating up, that we would like cut the fat skin chunks into cubes, and you put them in there and you make these crackling things. It's kind of like a pork rind, but it's got hair on it still. That's pretty gross, and that's some poor stuff, but it's fun times. And remember, Thanksgivings were always interesting. You sit and watch the Thanksgiving parade. There'd probably be snow on the ground, and Mom would be in the kitchen cooking up some turkey or whatever, and the house would get all, or the trailer would get all like steamy, and it smelled really good, but it'd be hot as hell and like foggy. My glasses would fog up and you couldn't see the parade very good. And I mean, that's all part of being poor and stuff. And I remember like Easter and picnics. We'd go out and like, we'd do a lot of farming. We'd like grow our own food. We had a tobacco farm. But we'd also grow like corn and peas and stuff like that. You'd have to shuck the corn and strip tobacco and break up peas and things like that. And it was pretty fun growing up. I was talking about the flea markets, right? Sometimes I think I got like an Indiana Jones whip at one of them. And that was probably my first thing that got me interested in grappling hooks. I've always talked about in games, I always liked grappling hooks because I watched Indiana Jones. Had a whip. You'd whip it on something, you'd swing, you know. But then there was also like in Star Wars when they wrapped up the legs of the AT-AT and Empire Strikes Back. That was kind of a grappling hook thing. And then Batman the Animated Series had a really good grappling hook. I always just liked the idea of it. But, let's see, I was telling the bus stories. I forgot to tell you about the time, like, the bus driver, he would always, like, we learned a lot of sexual things from him by asking me questions because he was pretty open about it. But then one time, there was a snake in the road, and he ran over the snake. He was trying to run over the snake, and he backed his bus into a tree trying to run over a snake. It was pretty funny. There's all kinds of bus stories I could tell, but met my friends Paul and Tom on the bus. I'll get into them more in the after high school video. But I should talk about how I got into guns a lot, because remember, growing up on a farm, we had a lot of BB guns, you know. We would shoot sycamore balls off sycamore trees, birds. When I was really young, maybe like 8 or something, my uncle had a BB gun. It was one of those daisy ones. It wouldn't shoot straight as anything. So he was telling me to shoot the car door, or I think maybe he shot my mom's car door with it, and he told me to do it, and I tried it, and I hit the window and shattered it. And I got a beating for that, which was well deserved, but then later on we ended up getting like 22s, I think, for a while, and like get into Boy Scouts, and they had like, it's kind of weird thinking about it today. I don't know if they still do this, but they have like merit badges for rifles and shotguns, I think, in Boy Scouts. And we'd go to like summer camps, or not even summer camps, just go camping trips. We made this one guy drink pee one time. We told him it was Kool-Aid. You would like put whipped cream in the guy's face, or play all kinds of pranks. This one guy was like the first aid instructor, and they took a big diarrhea shit in his bathroom, and he was taking a shower, and they turned the heat up so it would stink. Stuff like that. It's fun times. It's fun times. But we would try to shoot these little fishing lines that the targets were on with 22, and one guy did it. We had like clay pigeon shooting and stuff. It's kind of weird being a little kid, but you're still shooting guns and stuff. You don't really do that anymore. But probably why I like video games too, is because they have guns in them, and I'm kind of used to it. So the Boy Scouts, it was a Mormon church, my Boy Scout group, and it was kind of weird. When we get this summer camp this one year, we raised money by selling popcorn. I'm sure a lot of you probably done that before. Girl Scouts sell cookies, Boy Scouts sell popcorn. And I think we'd been to summer camp the year before, and it was normal. Everything was fine. But the second year, we got there early. It was like no other Boy Scout troops were there but us. And we were like setting things up. It's like we're doing a bunch of work. And then like at the swimming pool, they had these showers. And they wanted us to like get up early in the morning and like take showers together. And that seemed really super creepy. So then we called my dad and got the fuck out of there because it was weird. And it's kind of seemed like one of those Catholic things where like we were going to get molested or something. So I was like, hands off with that. But so I went to elementary school in this county school. There's a city school which was named after the town, which had way more people in it. But we were off in the rural kind of school. I've told stories about it before, about the kid with Down syndrome got wrapped up in an electric fence for 8 hours and fell asleep. You know, the typical stories of elementary school. I mean, if you haven't heard that story, holy shit, that's crazy. But I noticed when we got all into like middle school and high school, the girls from the county school kind of like get popular because, oh, everybody's seeing like, oh, there's these new girls we can like hook up with now. But the guys just kind of didn't get popular at all because they're not with the cool kids from the big school. You know, they had like, I don't know, it just seemed weird. Like, it seemed like all the city kids had all the popular guys in it. But let's see, Christmases were pretty good. I remember, I don't know if this was probably a little bit later on when I was in high school or late middle school. I was in those Columbia House book clubs. You know, you get 12 CDs for a penny and stuff, and I would get a ton of those. And I got into like, let's see, New Kids on the Block was big. There was like boy bands. Like, I know everybody had like Backstreet and NSYNC in like late 90s. But yeah, New Kids on the Block was the first boy band I'd ever heard of. And then you got into like, who was the Boys to Men, the black group. I got into them, and I got into this group All for One, which was kind of like a mix. Then this black boy band called Shy. And then like I got into like Jodeci and H-Town and a bunch of like black music from then. I kind of got kind of an expert on early 90s, like 89 to 90. Like black music is pretty funny. And then like in the 90s, like 94, 95, I got into like Pearl Jam and Smashing Pumpkins and alternative, and that kind of got me into more rock stuff and metal. And I had a huge CD collection back then because I was using that. You'd like make a new account or something, you get like 12 CDs for the price of one, and then you're supposed to like buy 3 more, but you'd cancel it or something, and then start over with like a new name or something. Pretty good scam. But another thing on Christmas, I remember one time, this is how I figured out Santa Claus wasn't real. So if you're under the age and you don't know Santa Claus not real, Santa Claus not real. That's how I figured it out. I'd asked for like a keyboard for Christmas. Like I said, we were big fans of Ferris Bueller and wanted a synthesizer, and he got one instead of me because I think they wrote the wrong name on it. My mom and dad, they wrote the wrong name, and I got like something that he wanted or something like I didn't care about. And then like I heard them tell my grandma, like she asked like how much that keyboard cost, and they said like $8, and it said from Santa Claus on the present. So I was like, well, that don't make sense, and that started my whole skepticism thing, and probably led to me becoming an atheist eventually. But it was probably also some of that Mormon shit from the summer camp thing. If you think about it, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So like I said, we had this country elementary school that combined in middle school with this other one, and there was another one in a town. There was like 2 towns in my county, and then we were in this country school off to the side. So all 3 of these schools combined in middle school, which was in this town like 20 minutes away. So we had to take this big long bus ride up there, and there was like, it was kind of a culture shock, you know. This was the first kind of thing. When you get into high school, you get like, you have to change buildings sometimes. Not just change classes every time you change class, but like in elementary school, you're all in one class all the time. Then we were like going to different buildings for like health class or like shop class and weird stuff like that, you know, and like remember this one kid, he plugged in, like, he stuck something in a light socket and it popped. That's another thing. I forgot to tell you about that. When I was doing my inventions and stuff, we used to have slot car races. I don't know if you know what a slot car is, but it's like, you have a racetrack. It's got a slit down the middle of it, and you have a little car with a little pin that sticks out, which connects it to the electricity, which runs the motor, and you have a little trigger you pull on it, and it makes it go higher, faster, or slower. So we would take those apart, right? And you take the motor, and you could take some wires, and you hook it up to a little AA battery or a C battery or whatever, and you could run the motor, and you could like hook up something to that motor and make like an electric eraser, or you can make a little drill, and you could drill into stuff and do all kinds of neat stuff with like things like that. And then one day I was like, let me just let's juice it up. Let's not use a battery. Let's take one of those plugs that you plug into the wall. Let's take one of those cords and let's strip the copper off and put that on the motor and plugged it into the wall. Thing pretty much just popped and exploded because it was way too much amps. And that's pretty cool. It's like some Back to the Future stuff right there. And so then when we got into middle school, there was this transition period when 8th grade we went to the old high school. This was like the high school where our parents went, and they had like big plaques on the wall, like the old classes. You could see like all these adults that went to the high school before you, and we had to take all the books from the middle school because they were changing the school. They were building new schools, and we were moving into this old high school temporarily. So the library had all these books, and they didn't want to like organize them and like put them back on the shelf. So they had all these kids, like you take a big stack of books from like LA to LJ, let's say, and you take all those books and you carry them with you, and you sit on the bus in a certain seat. The next guy would take like LJ to LZ, and he'd take all those books in his hands, and he would sit next to you. And they had everybody get off in a certain order, like put all these books back in the library shelves in order. That's pretty weird. And I love just old textbooks back in the day. You know, you get like a language arts or English book, and it'd have all these stories from like Charles Dickens or Beowulf or some shit like that in it. And it just had a smell to it. Old books just had a smell to them. And you see like the people that had the book before you, and like you see like the upperclassmen that you just followed behind in school, and like maybe somebody's parents might have had that book before you if you get an old enough. Usually you wouldn't get one that's that old, but sometimes they would have they would give away the old textbooks, and I would take some of those home with me. I wish I still had some of them because they had some good stories in them. But plus, you could it's almost like a time machine or like a what do you call those capsules? Time capsules. Like right now, I'm really into looking at the Wayback Machine, like old YouTube pages, what YouTube used to look like. Like I've got this old antique Sears catalog. You can look up old toys that they used to sell and stuff, and old commercials. But yeah, if you get those old textbooks, you can see like how everybody used to dress. Like, have you ever watched Sesame Street when it really came on? Everybody was wearing like bell bottoms from the 70s, and they had like weird logos and stuff on their shirts. I'm into that. I like the way it looks, and especially those old books. But pretty much covers this video. We're already at 13 minutes, so I'll go ahead and call it, and I'll see you in the next one. Right. We're getting into the good stuff now. We've talked about the 80s. We've talked about the cartoons, the culture, how way everything was just like a big cultural soup you stewed in. Like wrestling was big back then, renting VCR tapes. For example, Mr. T, he was on the A-Team TV show, and then he got into wrestling, I think, somehow. I think he fought Hulk Hogan at one time. And then the actual TV wrestling got into, like, there was a cartoon version of, like, Hulk Hogan and his Amazing Friends, or that's Spider-Man. But, like, there was a Hulk Hogan cartoon, right? Then you had your Mr. T cereal, then you would get, like, a Mr. T lunchbox, then you get, like, a WWE Trapper Keeper, and everything was kind of, I guess it's kind of the same today with, like, SpongeBob's everywhere, and Rick and Morty's everywhere, and Adventure Time, and things like that. It's kind of become a meme, and they get merchandised a lot, but there was, it seems like there was more of it back then because there was more stuff. Maybe just because I'm not in school anymore. But anyway, this was starting to get to where I was getting into computers. So let me set the stage for you. What is that TV show I always talk about? It's on Netflix. One about the early computing days of Sinclair. I think they call it something else in the TV show. It doesn't matter. My dad had this friend, Kenny. He worked with him. And I think he was trying to talk my dad into buying a computer. So we went over to his house, right? And we go down to his basement. His basement looked like one of those old rooms full of computers, and like I think he had a fancy keyboard too, a synthesizer or whatever. And he had this computer, and I was like, I've never seen a mouse before, right? And I picked up this mouse and started moving around. He had like MS Paint or something. I made this squirrely kind of a shape, and I was like, oh my god, that kind of looks like a ninja's head. And I drew like a thing for the eyes, you know, and I drew like a little hand come up, and I threw a ninja star. And I'm like, that looks fucking dope. Imagine if I could do that all the time. And my this guy Kenny, he was explaining to my dad how the internet worked. And what he told him was like, we're going to use Netscape Navigator, and that's actually a browser. That's not the internet. But we're talking about dial-up connections, and he was saying like, yeah, Netscape is like a canoe or a rowboat. He said you can get anywhere in the ocean with a rowboat, but it's not as fast as if you had a big ship. So it's slower, but it'll get you anywhere you want to go. So he kind of explained it like that. I mean, Netscape was pretty big back in the day. And then you had all these early search engines like Dogpile, and we used this one. It was like 9 search engines in one, Pingu or something like that. It had like Yahoo on it and Alta Vista, a bunch of other search engines, right? And a lot of stuff back then, there wasn't a lot of graphics. You may have seen some early websites of GeoCities and Angel Fire's pages, stuff like that, but chat rooms were pretty big, but they weren't like, okay, there's chat rooms. I'm so old school with this. There wasn't even like live chats, like you'd see new text pop up constantly. You would type a thing, and then you have to refresh the page, like a message board sort of. People would see your message, and then they would type stuff, and you'd have to refresh the page and see what they wrote. And then there was this thing called, it was kind of similar to emotes now, it was called actions. You type /action, and then like chair was one of them. And this was supposed to simulate like you're in a bar, and you take a chair and you smash it over somebody's back. So people are always smashing chairs over people's back in these old chat rooms, right? And then there was this Phil Donahue episode where they were interviewing this man and woman who met on a chat room, and they got married, and they're trying to explain it to Phil Donahue or the audience or whatever about how it works. And he was like, yeah, we were breaking chairs over each other's backs in this chat room, and like nobody knew what the fuck they were talking about. It was so dope to have been there in that time. And like, I've seen this my whole life. Like, I've been ahead of the curve, and I've seen like these news stations like, what is the internet? What is this World Wide Web everyone's talking about? And nobody knows what it is, and it's like everybody's just behind, and you're ahead of them, and you feel like you're smarter than everybody else, which we were, people that were into computers and gaming back then. So then I think my dad buckled down and got a computer. We got the dial-up, you know how that sounds, the sound it makes. 56K, I think we had. It wasn't a 28.8, it was a 56K. Pretty good stuff, right? We got a custom-built computer, and I started learning about all the parts, and eventually learned how to build my own computer. But back then, the big game of the day was Wolfenstein 3D, and everything was shareware. You just give people games, like on CDs. I used to have like Entertainment Weekly magazine or Electronic Entertainment, like E3. You know, E3 came from a magazine called Electronic Entertainment something, I think, and then I think that became E3. And they would have like weird CDs in the back of them. Some of it was kind of like pornographic. I think Prince made a CD where you could like tour his house, and there'd be like chicks on the bed and stuff. There was like live action CD-ROMs kind of got, like the early days of CD-ROMs were weird. Like you had those Mad Dog McCree kind of motion captured real video things, and then what was the other one? Ground Zero Texas. There was a bunch of kind of games like that, but there were some that were like porn based too. Hexen, I played a lot of that, and Doom. And these were games that were small enough you could put them on a floppy disk. You could take them to school and then stick them in your school computers and play them at school if you're sneaky. Now, a lot of people talk about the Oregon Trail game, and I never really played it, maybe like once or twice, but mostly I was playing like Carmen Sandiego. There was this game, it's pretty good for learning about geography. On the school computers, they had Carmen Sandiego and Ski Free. But then I also got into IRC chat rooms. Now that was where the early days of torrenting kind of got their start, because it wasn't torrents back then. It was people just had FTP servers, and you used Qt FTP program to get into their servers and just type these commands to have it send you the files, and you just download it directly. But you'd have to get into a secret channel. Like there was one called Dreamwares that I was in. Anything back then was called Wares, W-A-R-E-Z. So you had apps with a Z, you had games with a Z, and then you had apps and games. What else was there? Music maybe or something like. So you'd change directories. You'd figure out like, oh, this guy's got a bunch of apps. Let me go download Dragon Naturally Speaking. It can like type out whatever I say or stuff like that. You know, that was a big one. I don't know if they had Photoshop back then. I think it was before Photoshop. But my friend Tom's parents were divorced, right? And sometimes he'd stay at his dad's house, and sometimes stay at his mom's house. When he stayed at his dad's house, his dad had a little mini house, like a guest house on the side of his house. And my friend Tom would stay there by himself, so we had the whole place to ourselves. We would make like Hot Pockets, no, not Hot Pockets, pizza rolls. We would make pizza rolls, and we would play like Zork and Myst and Mad Dog and games like that on his PC. And then my friend Paul, he got a freaking brand new Packard Bell. He's the one that got me into Dungeons and Dragons and all the Dragonlance novels. I borrowed off him and read them. And he got the Packard Bell, and I think that's when I got my own computer, or I upgraded because his was so nice. But we got into, that was like probably freshman year, so I met Tom and Paul. Probably knew Paul longer because he lived near me. We used to ride the bus together, and then we got all of us got into comic books. Wizard magazine came out for the first time, and like I want to say 91, 92, because I graduated in 96, and it was like maybe 93 or 4. I think I was about a freshman in high school when Wizard Comics came out, and you could kind of learn to draw comic book characters in it. That was pretty dope. And then, I don't know how I did this, but I learned to hack. Probably just from spending so much time in chat rooms, because it was all like Linux based. And when I played Tribes 2, it was Linux based too. You have to learn to write a lot of commands, you get into DOS. But I hacked the school computer one time. I was in this program. It was kind of like a early job kind of preparation, kind of, what do they call those classes? I don't remember. But most people would like leave and go to the vocational school to do this and like learn a trade. I was like, I just wanted to get it done to graduate and get my credits or whatever, right? So I was like, I'm going to work in the library because there's computers in the library. I can play solitaire all day, right? So I'm working in the library, and I started getting into the DOS, into the roots of the whole network of the whole school's computers somehow. I don't know how I did it. It completely blows my mind that I did it. I don't even remember how I figured out how to send like a message to all the computers in the whole school. It didn't say that it would send a message. It just kind of was vague, and I just like, somehow I knew it would work. I don't even know. But there was this scandal. My biology teacher, and if you remember from the previous video, my intro, where I was talking about how the baseball team were bullying me in the biology class. As a biology teacher, he would always come into class for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then he would leave. And you never fucking see him again. He would just be gone. So then they could fucking abuse me and then bully me and shit. So I didn't like this, and then there was a scandal. Like, we heard that he was fucking his students, because he was like the football coach, right? And supposedly some of these popular girls in class were fucking him. So I sent a message about that whole scandal to all the computers. And as soon as I sent this message, the computer started beeping really loud. And like, I was with this other guy, too. This other guy was watching me, so I like shut it off real quick. And I was like trying to explain to him what was going on. We just kind of walked away, acting like nothing's happening. Of course, everybody in the library was looking at us. So then somebody come and got me. Somehow they figured out it was me, and they made me go to the office, and they punished me by changing my job site or whatever to one of the vocational school ones, I think. That's what happened. So when I got over to the ones at the vocational school, they had computers too, because this was like a typing class or something I was in too. And I ended up fucking with that computer, I think on the last day of school. This was like an old Novell system. It wasn't even Windows, right? And you could change the settings of the colors if you wanted the text to be like a certain color or the background to be a certain color. And the last day of school, I changed them all to black. So it would look like the monitor wasn't working even when it was. So you turn it on and you see black on black. You can't read anything. It looks like the monitor's just dead. So that was pretty dope. A couple of times I hacked the computers at school, and I used to like, Mom would have me fix her friends' computers, and I was kind of known as the guy that would, like, basically you go to somebody's house, and there's nothing really wrong with their computer, they just got a bunch of junk that they downloaded, or their mouse, like, they didn't have optical mouse back then, they had those little balls, and you have to take the ball out and clean it, clean the little rollers on it, and everything would be working great. And like, wow, how'd you fucking do that? That's amazing. You fucking had gunk in your shit. It's not a big deal. And I used to be on the academic team, like the quick recall, like a quiz show kind of a thing, right? And we'd go on field trips, and then like one time we went to the mall, and they had an Aladdin's Castle. I don't know if that's still a thing, but it's like a big arcade. You'd have tokens and shit. Kind of got into arcade games like that. Also, like Walmart, I think, had a Super Street Fighter 2 game. Got really into that. I wanted to get a Super NES. And Pizza Hut had a Samurai Showdown 4. Yeah. I was playing Bossero a lot. And Ukyo. Getting into some arcade shit. Fucking good times. And you go on, I think at the mall, they had like a record store, but it was cassette tapes back then. So everybody got some cassette tapes. You listen to your fucking Walkmans on the bus on the way home. It's fucking sick time, dude. So then, this was like sophomore year, because there was older kids ahead of me. I remember in the academic team, there was this one guy, he was like super smart, right? And he was taking AP biology and AP French classes, all the AP classes, right? He could speak French almost. I think one time he even took home a dead cat, because it was like part of his biology class. He had to like, he knew like there's 212 bones in the human body or something. He had to like name them all. He knew like all the muscles, and he had to like dissect this cat and like separate all the muscles out. And people were doing like some high level shit in high school back then. I don't know if they even do that anymore. Like you could get chemistry sets in elementary school back then, but now they think you're gonna make a bomb and be a terrorist. It's weird. Things have changed. So then when I got into like junior year, I think I could have got my driver's license in, but I kind of didn't. I kind of waited a year longer than everybody else did. I don't know why. I guess I just didn't. I kept wanting to ride the bus, or didn't want to pay for gas or something. But then once I finally got my driver's license, dude, I started driving Double D to school. I'd drive my brother to school, and then like when we get to Double D's, where I picked her up at, I'd make him get in the back so she'd sit in the front, just for like not even a quarter of a mile to the school, because she didn't want to like be riding in the back like some chauffeur or something, right? Plus, it was nice to look at her ass, because she had a nice ass. She could out, whatever. So then I kind of got the idea, like, people would leave for lunch. If you had a driver's license, you could go to Sonic and get some fucking jalapeno poppers. And it's like, wow, you could do this all the time. And it was like a certain point when you're growing up, you start thinking about money in the future in your life. I think on one of these field trips, too, we went to like a McDonald's, and I was like, well, you can get a Big Mac and a fries and a Coke for like $5. I mean, if you only ate 2 meals a day, which is pretty reasonable, you could live on like $10 a day, and 7 days a week, that's $70 a week. You wouldn't have to make that much money to just live off of McDonald's if you wanted to. You start thinking about things like, how am I going to make it in the future when I get a job? How much money am I going to need? And then you got to factor in rent and all this other stuff, but like, shit's starting to get real. You're starting to drive cars, you're starting to be responsible, and you start thinking about life and the future. And like I said before, every part of my life I had this crazy idea that was really bad. It was a really bad idea, and it didn't work out very good. So eventually, I got my pickup truck. This was after high school, I guess. But I had this crazy idea. Like, when you wanted to move, or you had to get somebody something for a present for birthdays or Christmas, you needed a box, you can go behind the grocery store and you can get a box. And then we had this Walmart got put in. I was like, well, there's all these boxes out in front of Walmart all banded up. They're recycling those, right? You can just recycle boxes? So I started thinking about it, like, Walmart's making all this money recycling these boxes, and behind the grocery store you can get boxes for free. So I'm like, let me just take my pickup truck and put a bunch of boxes in it, take them home, and then I'll cut them up with a box cutter, and I'll just recycle these boxes that are free, and I'll just make free money. But I didn't figure out the cost of gas, and that you can't fit a whole lot of boxes in a truck, because they're boxes. They're not collapsed down. They're just big boxes. And then the air catches them, and then some of them blow out of the back of your truck. And I was like, this is a good idea. This is fine. I'm down here in the basement cutting these boxes, listening to X-Files on tape, audiobook. And then I realized this is a horrible, horrible idea. I wasn't going to make any money. So I had to cancel that. I don't know what we did with those boxes. Me, I just burned them or something. But that was my dumb idea for that time. And that concludes T2, the high school years. Alright, so we pretty much wrapped up high school. That's when I kind of got into computers. I remember in high school class, they used to, like, we had to have a password for one of my computer classes. And my first password, it had to be 4 letters. Everybody was using, like, their initials or something. And I was like, nah, I'm going to go with DRGN, because that's dragon with the vowels removed. And that was my first password. And then, this is kind of interesting. At the end of senior year, I think, somebody was having a party. And this one girl invited me to it. And she was saying, yeah, we would come to this party. There's going to be 2 kegs there or something. And I was like, no, I don't really drink. She's like, well, you don't have to drink. Just come hang out. And I was like, I just don't really think I'd have much fun. I didn't go. And that was kind of like the end of my social life. Like, I could have had a social life probably if I went to this party. Probably took a wrong turn there. And then we graduated, and it was really sad. Because you could see the writing on the walls. T2 is going to be a lonely bastard. But then ended up buying a house. I worked at a convenience store for a while, selling chicken and lottery tickets, and that was kind of fun. There's a lot of drama. There's some chicks involved. Like Double D, we had this falling out. Didn't speak to her for 15 years. Dated this woman's daughter that I worked with. I dated my mom's best friend's daughter because she had a kid. Sort of. I mean, I wasn't even really dating, really. And she kind of abandoned me for this other guy that had money because his mom worked at her own Walmart, was the manager at the Walmart. And then there was this other chick that was like the comic book store guy's daughter. Which, if you think of it, you always think of the fucking Simpsons comic book guy. But it was kind of like that. We went on a date. That was pretty cool. And she was like, she couldn't stay with me because she was too big for this town. She was going to leave this town and make something of herself or something like that, you know. And she's still there to this day, I think. I don't think she ever left. But, yeah. When I turned like 19, 20, I bought a house. It was a cheap, like $23,000 house, and this is kind of where I first got a puppy for the first time, and that didn't work out too good. It was just like a stray puppy, and like I used this string that was too small for like an outdoor lead, and came back from work one day, and she got wrapped up in it. And then I had a cat for a while, and the cat shit behind my Christmas tree, and I had to get rid of the cat. And let's see, after the convenience store job, I got another job as a parts manager for this place that made lumber handling equipment. And I kind of learned how things worked at that job. And like, mostly it was just driving a forklift around, but you also had to learn like how things go together and how things, and you kind of like figure out like, what's that Miyamoto quote, the samurai. He wrote in the Book of 5 Rings. Joe Rogan talks about this. It's like, once you know the way broadly, you can see it in all things. That was kind of how that worked out. You kind of see how everything works once you understand how machines work. That was pretty true. But my house, it was pretty shitty. I remember I would close all the doors except for the room with my computer in it and the living room, so I could watch TV and use my computer. And the rest of the house, the kitchen, the bathroom was in, like, off the kitchen. It was a weird, I guess they used to have an outhouse, because this was an old house, and like they put the bathroom in later. And the bedroom, I just think I was sleeping on the couch. Well, I slept on the bed, but it was like, in the wintertime, the toilet would freeze because it was so cold. So I was trying to save money on heat. Air conditioner wasn't too good. And, let's get on to the computer days. What games was I playing back then? This was Windows 95. This was my upgrade from the Doom and the Heretic and Hexen and Wolfenstein when I was playing Quake 2. And that got me into like the capture the flag thing with the laser mine CTF. You playing in the dark with the laser tripwires and things. And then Tribes 2 came along, and I got into that pretty hardcore. As you know, that's where my name comes from. Napster came out. I started downloading a ton of music, and probably, I don't know if torrents started that early, but I was still downloading from the IRC channels probably. They had like Microsoft Flight Simulator, but it was like a frame every couple of seconds. It was really horrible. Then the guy at my work tried to teach me like how to build computers, or he was kind of trying to mentor me or something. I don't really understand why. He would like have me stay over after work and take computers apart. And they used like the Nobel system back then. Like nobody was even on Windows. I'm like, why are we on this old crap? And it doesn't make any sense. And he ended up being like a preacher at my grandma's church. He's still there now. I was reading a lot of Anne Rice novels at the time. That was big back then. Stephen King and Anne Rice, learning about vampires. Then my friends, Paul and Tom, they would hang out with me all the time at my house. And there's this other chick that used to come over too. And we would like hang out on chat rooms and like try to get her a boyfriend. But like, I don't know why. Like, she's pretty hot. I used to go to church with her, and I really should have made a move on her. I really wish I had. But my friends ended up getting girlfriends, and I never did. And I think my friend Tom lost his virginity in my house one time. Because me and the other guy, Paul, we left to give them some privacy, and came back and heard some stories. And then, we used to do, Truth or Dare or something. It was weird. We had this hot girl that had, a barbershop down the street from me, and, we would always, try to spy on her. Well, not really, but we would make jokes about it. What else happened? I used to bring a lot of chicken home from the work. That was always great, man. Extra chicken at the end of the night. And my friend Paul worked at Pizza Hut, and he'd bring home pizzas, and we'd swap. And here, have a bunch of chicken. You have a bunch of pizza. And it was fucking dope. And then, this is what got me into, podcasting, I think. Me and my friend Tom used to ride around his trucks. He had, a brand new lease on a Ford Ranger. And me and my friend Tom, whenever we talked, we'd get to laughing so hard, we'd think of the funniest shit, and it was hilarious. I'm like, we got to start recording this. So one day I bought one of those micro cassette recorders, and we started taping them. And one time we went behind this, a business or whatever, and there was this old woman, in the bushes, in the weeds on the side of this gravel road, and I think she was taking a shit or taking a piss or something. And she came out, she was all mad at us because we caught her in the weeds. It was hilarious. I don't know what I used to talk about on those tapes. Wish I still had them. No, I don't think I have those anymore, but it was funny times. So then he ended up moving to Lexington. I was probably 21, 22, 23, something like that. And my job wasn't going too well. I could tell that I was going to end up getting laid off, probably because it wasn't a lot of work. And let me just take a chance and move to Lexington with him. So I moved up here, or there, to Lexington. And then, so you move out of your mom and dad's house, you get into this house that I bought, right? And then I moved out of that one to Lexington, and then moved in with my friend in an apartment. I was only there for 3 months, because he had a 6-month lease, and when his lease was over, he went back home and got married and left me there. So then after his lease was over, I got a cheaper place because it was a 2-bedroom. I went to a 1-bedroom apartment. So I moved 4 different times in the space of 3 or 4 years or something, probably. It kind of fucks with your mind. I started having all these weird dreams. When you dream, if you move around a lot, I guess other people experience this. If you move around a lot, you'll have dreams that you're in the wrong house, or that you're dreaming that you still live where you used to live, but nothing really makes sense. And it's kind of you get disoriented and stuff. It's kind of like that. And then also just moving to a new city kind of makes you kind of queasy, because everything's unfamiliar. You don't know where everything is, and it's disorienting. And so I started getting this weird nostalgia thing. I was talking about in the intro about how I get nostalgic for things that never happened to me before. And I started getting this weird feeling. I talked about it in a video before, where it was you're standing on a beach, and one leg's in the water and one leg's on dry land, and the ocean, the water, symbolizes all the knowledge in the world. And it's kind of like that, once you see the way broadly you see it in all things kind of thing. You kind of, sometimes I'll look at my hand and I'll realize I'm an actual living being and I'm going to die one day and shit, and it just kind of get nauseous from it or like scared, but not really. And it's also kind of a nostalgic feeling, and I'll start thinking of things that like I used to do, but I didn't because I didn't actually experience it. It's hard to explain. It's like trying to describe a dream when it's fleeting from you, you know. Like the other day I had this dream that I was a CEO of a corporation or something, but it didn't feel like a dream. It felt like I was actually like a past life, like I used to be a CEO or something. Kind of like they say how the world's all an illusion and we're all just like in a simulation playing a game. And like maybe I'm the CEO of the company that made the game that the reality is or something. Kind of felt like that. So yeah, anyway. That all was pretty weird. And then I moved into the second apartment. And I got a different job. And that's where I met Tina Gilmore from the Gilmore Saga and lost my virginity at the ripe old age of 25. She was like 20. And that whole story I took off of YouTube because she has a family now and it was kind of embarrassing. I don't think she wanted people knowing about it. I don't know. I may eventually talk about it again. But like I said in my other videos, every section of my life I have a crazy idea that doesn't work out. And I try to make some money. And in this one, I was like, when I first moved into my house, see, I was ahead of the curve, like I said. People didn't have websites for their companies at this time. This was a whole new concept. Nobody had websites. And I figured there was all these people selling antiques all over the place. So my idea was, eBay was kind of getting big. So I'd go around and I would kind of be a broker for antique dealers. I would take their antiques, I would photograph them, I would put them on eBay for them, I would sell them, and I would take a commission. That was my plan. Nobody really wanted to do it. One place actually already had something online. But this one guy, he had like a bunch of weird stuff. He had like these old piano rolls for like player pianos, and he had like these walking sticks made out of bull dicks. For like a bull that has a dick. You take the dick off and you wrap it around a stick, and then somehow you freeze it or you cover it in lacquer, and you made canes out of it. It was gross. And like his son was kind of an artist, and he would take wood and he would whittle it and make it look like a lit cigarette. He had a bunch of those. But I remember like I was taking a picture of these like lead army men, or they're supposed to be pretty rare or something, and trying to sell those online and some other things. But I don't think it even sold. It was kind of just a trash fire of an idea. It went horribly wrong, like all things did. But yeah, that kind of got me into eventually making YouTube videos. That was, let's see, I was at the new apartment. I don't know if I ever made any YouTube videos when I was at that apartment in Lexington, at the Gilmore Saga. Yeah, I might have. It might have been real early days. I can't remember what my earliest YouTube video was because I didn't use a camera for the first several videos. I was just editing other things. But that was my early 20s. I mean, there's a lot of other girls mixed into there because I did kind of date a little bit, but maybe that's a video for another time. There wasn't a whole lot of girls mixed in there. I'm just thinking like elementary school shit, but yeah, that pretty much covers it.